What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Command and Console. My name is Jason. Today we have a mega RPG haul, a mix of eBay, vintage, game, and of course our favourite, CEX. Got footage from my local CEX of just scouring the shelves. The majority of this lot is PS4. But I've got some Xbox One in here as well, Xbox Series as well. So yeah, strictly RPG stuff. I went on a bit of an impulsive RPG binge. That's what I was looking for at the time. So let's get to the footage. So as you can see, I looked at mostly PS4 in the footage of CEX. I have picked up a bunch of stuff. Like I said, it's not strictly CEX. Some of it's from Game. Game have got an awesome 50% off pre-owned titles at the moment. So get to your local stores and grab those. Not every game will have pre-owned titles though, so you might have to be selective with which ones you go to. Start off with the Xbox games. So the first game is Final Fantasy Crisis Core Reunion. Now, fun fact is that the original Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core is probably my favourite PSP game ever. I adore that game. So when I heard they were going to do a remake, I knew I had to grab it, which I did. Really looking forward to checking this one out. I'm currently playing a game that I'm going to showcase in this video that made me want to kind of start picking up more of the Final Fantasy titles. It looks like it's going to have more of that kind of action combat that I like versus turn-based. I know the original didn't have turn-based either, but hopefully they've built upon the combat from the original PSP game. That is Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion. Next up is a Souls-like called Dolmen. This is kind of like almost like a science fiction Souls-like, but it's primarily about, you know, using firearms and rifles and laser pistols and shit. There's another game very similar to this that I've also picked up. It might be terrible. The reviews aren't great, I'll be honest, but yeah, a Souls-like for a $5 all day long, guys, all day long. That's Dolmen. Next up is an open world RPG that I really like. It's very difficult though. It's called Elex. I've got the sequel for PS5. The sequel is immensely improved over this. The combat's a bit jank if you go into the wilderness and you're not ready for it. Things like basic scorpions will just rip you to pieces and kill you. So it might not be your cup of tea. It's a very old school RPG. It's developed by Piranha Bytes, who are famous for the Gothic series, early 2000s kind of RPGs. So it's a very old school. It's very hardcore. The difficulty spike is unforgiving. It's not what I consider to be Souls-like at all. It's more old school open world RPG. But what makes this game really cool is that there's two factions. One faction is all about technology and using technology, and the other faction is all about kind of just like sword and board, and they don't want to embrace technology. And it's really cool. You can choose, you mix and match, you know, different weapons, you know, laser rifles, or you can just go sword and board it. You can choose. It's really cool. The world is really great to explore as well. That's Elex. I recommend it if you like your hardcore old school RPGs. It doesn't hold your hand. It will just kick the fuck out of you if you aren't leveled up to a point to take on certain adversaries. But if you can get past those kind of, you know, hurdles, it's a very rewarding RPG that I really recommend. That's Elex. Next up is another Souls-like, Immortal Unchained. I remember this game being absolutely shit on when it came out. Nobody liked it. It got like 4 out of 10 from IGN. I remember like the YouTuber Angry Joe, he hated it. But I've got a cousin. My cousin adores Souls-like games, and he really liked this one. He says it's a bit jank, but it's enjoyable for what it is. It's more about gunplay. Yeah, it looks like it's more about kind of like cyborg-esque, cyberpunk kind of vibe. We use guns more so than anything else to survive. It looks decent. I like my Souls-likes. I'm not super fan of them, and yeah, if it goes by all the, you know, by the basic beat for beat Souls-like stuff, it could be fun. That's Immortal Unchained. Now we move on to the PS4 titles. Some really good games in here that I recommend. So let's start with the first pick. This first pick I picked up in game in their 50% pre-owned sale. Biomutant. I remember this game was being teased, and I think I pre-ordered the collector's edition years ago before it even came out, but there was no release date for it. I ended up cancelling the pre-order. It was meant to come out in like 2018. Never did. I don't think it came out until 2019. But I did get it a little while ago before, maybe like 2020. I got it and I thought it was alright. It's a fun little game. But I will say, it is not your usual RPG. It's very much a decent kind of like my first RPG. It's very basic. It doesn't ramp up the difficulty too much. It's the systems are quite simple. So if you're the kind of person that wants kind of a casual RPG, Biomutant is a very good starting point. If you're looking to get into RPGs, I think Biomutant is a very good starting point with it as well. But I will say though, even though I would say it's kind of like my first RPG, it is very fun. It's very fun. I like the combat in it. It's got more of a kind of a Devil May Cry-esque combat where you can swap between your sword and your guns and stuff like that. But the thing that I think really solidifies this game for me is the world. I think the world is really cool and really great to explore. The game centers around like basically humanity's dead. Humanity is now extinct from the world. But it's more about these animals that have taken over the world, are the dominant species of the world, and they've evolved into like being bipedal and they can use weapons and all this. It's really fun. I really recommend Biomutant, and to get it for a £5 is a steal. Definitely glad to get this back in the collection. That's Biomutant. Next up is another game from Game in their 50% pre-owned sale. This is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Some people might not really consider this to be an RPG, but it's straight up, it's an RPG. Since Origins, Assassin's Creed has become an RPG behemoth at this point. I remember playing this when it came out. I think it dropped onto Game Pass. I'm not sure if it's still on there, but I wanted to get a physical version. I'd rather play it on my PS5, so I thought I'd get this. This was £8 reduced to 4 with the 50% discount. I thought for £4, I'm going to pull the trigger on it, because I get the free PS5 upgrade as well, so I get all the bells and whistles. It's pretty much £4 for a PS5 game, essentially. Couldn't really get into it when it was on Xbox. I've always wanted to go back to it, so I thought this is the perfect time to go back to it. So that's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You all guys know what Assassin's Creed games are, so yeah, apparently you can put like 100 hours and still not be complete in this game. It's a massive game, so I'm looking forward to giving that a revisit. Hopefully it can be a good one. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Next up is an RPG I don't think anybody likes, but I remember having this back when the PS4 came out and loving it, beating this DLC. I remember really enjoying this RPG. It's one of those European RPGs that has a bit of jank in there, but it's charming and it has a lot of fun in it, and the world building is great. Arcania is called. It used to be called Arcania Gothic 4, but the company lost the rights to the Gothic name and they had to just call it Arcania. Yeah, but I think this is really great. I know Gothic fans hate this game with a passion, but as a standalone RPG, if you separate it from the Gothic series, I think this is a really fun RPG. Like I said, when I had it back in the day, early days of the PS4, I smashed it. Just beat the whole campaign, beat all the side missions, done the DLC, because this does come with the DLC as well. It's a complete edition. So I wanted to get this again. Yeah, really underrated, overlooked RPG, I think. Go and check this game out, Arcania. Next up is a game called Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age. Now, I've only ever played one Dragon Quest game, and that was Dragon Quest VIII on the PS2. Really enjoyed that one, it was really good. But since then, I've fallen out of favour for turn-based RPGs. So I've always wanted to kind of get back into the whole turn-based RPG side of things. And someone, I think I watched a video, and they said this is probably one of the best games to get into JRPGs. It's a great starting point to get into JRPGs, and it's a great starting point to get into Dragon Quest games. So I thought this was like a fiver in CEX. So I thought, what a perfect way to get into Japanese RPGs and hopefully get back into the turn-based combat, because I'm struggling to get back into it. So this game looks really cool. I've chosen to have the alternate artwork on it because it looks great. That is Dragon Quest XI. Next up is a game that I'm currently playing, and I must say, I love this game. I've put about 25 hours into it. It's great. It's so good. It's called Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. I love this game. This is a Souls-like in the Final Fantasy universe. It's a pseudo remake of Final Fantasy 1. So it takes a lot of the story elements from the very first Final Fantasy game. But it's a Souls-like. I'm not playing it like a Souls-like. I've got it on easy mode because I'm terrible at Souls-like. The combat is absolutely great. It's so satisfying. It's brutal. It's nasty. You feel every impact. It's just so good. It's so impactful. It's so brutal. I love the combat in this. People will disagree, especially big fans of Souls-likes will probably disagree with this statement. But I think this might be my favourite combat in any Souls-like game. I think it's so fun. Going into combat in this game, it never gets old. I love getting into the combat with this. It's got a job system, which basically means that it depends what it's basically a class system, and it determines what weapons you can use in that particular class. Every weapon type in this game, every job style class, I suppose, is fun to play. Every weapon is so much fun to use, whether you're using the Ronin class and you're like using samurai swords, or you're using like the swordsman class and you're using like claymores and big heavy, two-handed swords. Everything about the combat in this game is fantastic. I love it. I think it's brutal. I think it's just satisfying to kill stuff. It's awesome. I highly recommend this game, Stranger of Paradise. I'm playing it at the moment. I've put 25 hours into it. It is so good. And I heard no one talk about it. And this is the game that has got me into maybe looking at more of the modern Final Fantasy titles and giving them a shot. That is Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. It's awesome, guys. Honestly, I can't recommend it enough. It's so good. Next up is a game I spoke about in one of my other recent videos. Risen. Yes, the classic, I consider it to be quite classic European RPG from Piranha Bytes. This game is great. This remaster is just awesome. It's basically a straight port, but you can play it at 4K resolution, higher res textures. It plays at 60 frames per second. It's pretty much just the full-on PC experience, but on console. They couldn't achieve it with the 360 version back in the day, but they've definitely nailed it on the PS4. It's so good. It's such a great RPG. I highly recommend it. That's Risen. To follow up Risen, I've got Risen 3. Risen 2 never got an updated port, unfortunately, so Risen 3 would have to do. Titan Lords Enhanced Edition. This game got a lot of shit when it came out, especially from big YouTubers like Angry Joe. But it looks fun to me. I can put aside some of the jankiness and stuff, man. If it's got hook there that really can get me into exploring its world and getting into the combat, even though it might be a bit jank, I'm probably going to get on with this. Not played this one yet. I do want to finish Risen 1 and go back to Risen 2 and finish that before I go to this, because the story does carry over. So yeah, looking forward to jumping on this one eventually. It looks decent from what I've seen. I feel like sometimes video game critics can be a bit too critical for things. As long as a game is fun and can keep my interest for so many hours, I'm going to give it a pass. That's Risen 3. It's one of my favourite RPGs of all time. Again, it got shit reviews. You can see a trend here, can't you guys? Technomancer. I love this game. I remember I picked it up. I think it was either given free on PlayStation Plus years ago, or it was on a deep discount. I can't remember. But I wanted to get it on physical just to have it in the collection. I love this game. I think it's great. Kind of take these two ideas into perspective. It kind of has this flavour of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect kind of combined. Obviously it doesn't have the polish or the talent involved with those games. But what it does have, it's got its own identity. I love the world building. I love the characters. I love the idea of the Technomancer. It's pretty badass. And yeah, it's set on Mars. There's not enough games set on Mars, guys. It's awesome. I really like this game. I think it's really, really good. I think the combat is clunky, but satisfying to a certain point. Yeah, you've got a mix of hand-to-hand and some guns in there as well. Lots of abilities. When you unlock your Technomancer abilities, you just become an unbelievably overpowered character. It's got multiple endings, so you always can go back and unlock different endings as well. I really like this game. I highly recommend it. It's dirt cheap now. Yeah, if you can put some of the jankiness aside, like I said, a lot of these RPGs that I talk about, they're from Europe. They've got a lot of jank. They've got tons of ambition that their budget cannot meet. With all its flaws, it's still great. I love it. It's one of my favourite RPGs of all time. I just love this game. That's Technomancer. These last two games I've picked up as of recording pretty much this morning. I picked up Maneater for the Switch on that 50% off pre-owned sale, a game for, it was listed at £2.99. I should have got it for £1.50. It's scanned in at £1.99, which means technically I got it for £1, and CX gave me £12 trading for it. With that £12 voucher, I picked up Final Fantasy 12, The Zodiac Age. I never got on with this game back in the day. Bear in mind, at the time, I was into the old school turn-based Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 10. This game, even though it kind of is turn-based to a degree, the combat system is completely new, completely different to what I knew back then. So I didn't like it. It was too much of a change for me back in the day when this came out. Now, I could see myself kind of getting into it. And with this remastered version, it's going to look great, it's going to run great, and I might be surprised how much I enjoy it. I don't know yet, but I wanted to add it to the collection. Yeah, I want to get all the remastered ones as well. So I want to get Final Fantasy 8 remastered. I want to get Final Fantasy 10 remastered as well. I do plan to get all those for the collection and just go down a nostalgia binge, really. I'm never going to get to any of these games anytime soon, by the way, but they're just added to the collection there, so they're there when I'm ready to play them. That's Final Fantasy 12. The final game is an interesting one that I think I have played, but I don't remember, so don't hold me on this. It's called Scarlet Nexus. This is an action RPG. It's made by Bandai Namco. The combat is very action based from what I remember playing it. If I have played it, I could be thinking of a different game. But yeah, I couldn't get into it when I played it originally. And I thought, you know what, I'm really into these kind of like action RPG kind of games. This one looks pretty cool. It looks very flashy. It kind of gave me, if you guys have played on the Switch, Astral Chain. It gave me that kind of vibe. I love Astral Chain, by the way. What a game. The Scarlet Nexus. It looks pretty decent. I get a free upgrade as well for PS5. So it's a win-win. My goodness. Oh, well, that was a journey, guys. That was a journey. But that is the RPG collection caper. I need to stop buying video games, but I won't. Anyway, guys, as always, let me know any of your thoughts on these games in the comments down below. And as always, let's continue to build an RPG collection.